Every Englishman's home is his castle. What we would ask, Your Majesty, is liberty. Liberty by law.
This version of Robin Hood was originally called Nottingham, but the title was changed partly because of rumours that Scott and Crowe had relocated the hero to another county. I was familiar with the theory that the Bozeman came from Yorkshire. Robin Hood Airport is in Doncaster. But at a preview of this movie, it seemed to me that the lead actor, from his accent, was putting forward a much bolder proposition, that Robin Hood was an Irishman who took frequent holidays in Australia. I took this conviction to the Dorchester Hotel in London, where Russell Crowe was hunched in an armchair, moodily chewing a cigarette. Possibly because that day's newspapers reported on a new book alleging angry disagreements on the set of Gladiator, including the claim that Crowe initially refused to say his character's most famous line.
And I will have my vengeance, in this life or the next.
But our interview started on safer ground. Having now made 4 movies with Ridley Scott, does he pretty much trust the director to decide what their next project together will be?
On this particular occasion with Robin Hood, it came to me first, and I was given the option of selecting who it might be that makes the film, and I said straight away, well, my preference would be that it's Ridley. We have a similar sense of humour, a similar work ethic, and we've learnt an essential thing about each other, that if you listen to the words that the other one's saying, as opposed to the tone which it might be said in, then, we both are always focused on the job. We're not concerned about, many of the other things that get in the way of the job. We're just concerned with the story. And when we work together, we work 24/7 and pass each other in the catering tent and swap information about certain things that are coming up and all that. But I did at one point sit down with him a number of years after Gladiator, and our schedules are getting further and further apart, and it kind of looked like it was an impossible thing to make another movie together unless we made it a priority. So we sat down, we sifted through the ideas that he had and the ideas that I had, and I basically waited until I saw a sparkle in his eye when he was talking about one particular project, and I said, well, we should do that. And he goes, oh, I want to do a little comedy set in the south of France, mate. And I said, I want to do the movie that you want to make.
And that was a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we got smashed for that film critically, because it wasn't Gladiator. But you really can't expect adult filmmakers to do anything but the film that is in front of them. And that film will stand the test of time. And it's just as complex to make that movie as it is to make something like a Robin Hood in reality. There's just as many problems that come up during the course of the day. And what we enjoy doing in each other's company is solving problems. That's the nature of filmmaking.
With Robin Hood, your career, as you know, overlaps with that of that other Antipodean film star, Errol Flynn. You've played a much wider range of parts, but have you had a particular interest in Flynn? Because part of your career is similar.
I don't really have that much of an interest in Errol Flynn. I've seen a number of his movies, and if you can point out the character that he played with any level of truth, then let me know so I can watch that film.
I just found the swashbuckling bit of it, but I mean, you do very many other different movies as well. But did you watch any of the other Robin Hoods historically?
Yeah, all of them. I've seen. Well, when I say all of them, the more significant ones, because there's a lot of sort of really low budget ones, and I haven't seen the porno one. But I grew up seeing the Fairbanks one, seeing Errol Flynn's one, seeing Richard Todd, seeing Richard Green's TV series, and then obviously later on saw Costner and saw Patrick Bergin. So I had a lot of things to reference, but both Ridley and I weren't actually interested in the 100 Years of Cinema.
I was going to say, you've gone very much away from it. It's not Men in Green Tights at all. I mean, it will surprise many people. This is effectively a prequel to the whole Robin Hood story. Robin Longstride, he only really becomes Robin Hood as we know him at the end.
Yeah, well, we tried to find the real man, take away all the comic book stuff and the narrative cliches that had grown up over time. Once Mel Brooks has made a film that examines all those cliches, I mean, really, it's a dead issue, and the slate needs to be wiped clean. And none of those movies that we've talked about address the simple thing of who the man was and what the circumstances of his life might have been, and where in truth he might have come from, and how he came to be the altruistic man that we understand him to be. That's where we found it to be more fascinating.
You talk about where he comes from, the location of him, the accent you've given him. There are hints to me of Irish, but what were you thinking of in those terms?
You've got dead ears, mate. You seriously got dead ears if you think that's an Irish accent.
Hints of, I thought.
Bollocks. The reality break for him is that he has been estranged, in our version, estranged from his family for a long time. He has, marched from the south of France to Palestine and back. He's seen the great empires of his time, but he's been surrounded by other Englishmen. The English army has been pulled greatly from the barons of the north and the families of the north. And depending on which historian you want to believe, there's always been a big argument between whether his birthplace is Nottingham, whether his birthplace is Barnsdale. And we just took the attitude that whatever you understood about whatever you think you know about Robin Hood, it was a previously understandable mistake. So we take some of other people's narrative ideas and we twist them around. So the name Loxley, for example, has become synonymous with Robin Hood, but we show you why that was a simple mistake to actually say that he really was this man Loxley. I'm a little dumbfounded that you could possibly find any Irish in that character. That's kind of ridiculous, but it's your show.
So you're going for... Well, no, just hang. You're going for Northern English.
No, I was going for an Italian. Yeah. Missed it? Anyway.
The outlaw aspect of him, that must appeal to you at some level. I mean, there is an aspect of you that dislikes regulations, conventions.
Well, I think, in the social outcast, you can, you find the reality of the thought process of any given time.
Do you identify with that? But
I think that there's, it's a much more complex life, and therefore an interesting thing to follow. Somebody who will stand outside of the social tenets of his time. Yeah, but that's a broad statement.
And in those epic scenes, those huge scenes, they're so complex. For an actor, it requires patience, first of all. I mean, the sheer difficulty of putting those together.
Yeah, but that's, why it's fun working with somebody as sure-handed as Ridley is, because theatre on a grand scale is something that he can do very well. He spends a lot of time at the beginning of the process building the infrastructure that he'll need as a filmmaker. So he'll know how many horses he has on any given day, what it takes to feed those horses. He will also know how many severed heads he has in the effects department. So I really respect and appreciate the level of detail that he goes into. You've seen many other people in the last little while try and take on these epic stories and fail spectacularly, because it's not an easy thing to do. But he's a wonderful visual artist, Ridley. He sees the complete canvas before he begins, and then he's meticulous enough and patient enough to work in 1-inch squares until that painting's completed.
And do you argue a lot on set?
No, we discuss, we talk, but we, listen to what each other is saying, not necessarily the tone of how it's being said, and that's how we communicate the way we do. One of the guys that I worked with on this film, because he'd never made movies before, he was able to have a simple, objective viewpoint of Ridley. He said that he'd worked out that Ridley had roughly 1.1 million decisions to make at the beginning of the movie, but Ridley will make the decision he needs to make right now, not the one he needs to make 2 days from now or 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now. And that there's truth in that. The problem that's in front of you is the one that you need to solve.
And finally, you can either answer this or not. I just give you the chance because it's out there at the moment. As you know, that the suggestion you didn't want to say the famous line in Gladiator in this book that has come out. Okay. Thank you.
I don't get the Irish thing, bro. I don't get it at all.
Russell Crowe, who waved his cigarette in farewell.